All right. So we went from about 45 agents to close to 100 agents.
No. So actual numbers, we were sitting around 90 agents.
Okay.
When I took over the broker role in August of 2024, we were sitting around 90 agents.
In Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island. We are now up to about almost 160.
And this happened about 3 weeks.
I know. Yeah. And honestly, like, I take no credit for this because
it's a team effort.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
Right. Just like everything else we do in real estate, this has been a grind to show people a proof of concept that this type of brokerage can work. This is a future of what's happening in business. And I think the climate, people understand right now that there's tech forward companies and there's companies that are just going to get left behind, just like we were talking about AI. No. Right. And I think Real is embracing that tech and utilizing it and giving it in a practical, user-friendly way to agents so that it makes their lives and their businesses run more efficiently. Yeah. And I do believe that that's the biggest benefit that Real has offered people. In addition to the multiple revenue streams and everything else, it's just making your life easier on a day-to-day basis to sell homes. And that's what agents want.
I was talking to an agent last week, and she was telling me about how at her current company, she does business, right? She's newer, but she's out there. She hustles. Like, she sends me off market stuff for flips all the time. Like, she's that person. But she does it in her way. Networking, does the thing, right? And she's part of this company. And the company is literally telling her, you need to stop all of this. And you need to come in here and cold call every day. The same list that all other 100 agents are calling, right? Cold calling works. But if you have somebody who has a certain talent, instead of inspiring that person to do more of that, they're literally trying to tell her to stop because it doesn't make sense to them because it's not fitting in that box.
Yes.
So that's why I was talking to her, and she's most likely coming over to Real because I told her, I said, literally the entire company is that. Like, if you just go into our online system, there's people teaching everything about everything. It's like wherever you want to land. Social media, cold calls, email, content, signs, flyers, whatever you want. It's about you. It's not about you fitting into a box.
100%.
And I think that's why it's happening. I really do.
That's one of the things too I love about like coaching. Like, my coaching style is just that. I'm a strength-based coach, right? I want to find out what you're good at and what you like to do, because you're likely to do way more of that if I can put you in a position to do that, versus forcing you into a box of, well, here's the 3 things that have proven to work, do these 3 things or fail. Yeah. It doesn't work anymore. I mean, that's like a 1980s approach to business. Nowadays, it's totally different. And by the way, this was a whole big topic of conversation too last week at that coaching conference. Text messaging now is probably more effective than cold calling.
Yeah.
Actual text messaging and connecting and DMing, because someone can look at your profile, see what you're about, like really kind of engage with you on a different level than just a phone call, which, by the way, you know, probably 1 out of 10 people now picks up the phone when it's a number they don't know.
It's even worse, man.
Right?
It's like 1 out of 50.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, and it's not to say that cold calling doesn't work. Everything works if you do it consistently.
Yes.
And that's the point of it all. So when I tell an agent, I have so many coaching clients, they're like, hey, I'll do anything you tell me, but I will not cold call.
Perfect.
Right? I will do anything else though. So it's like, okay, great. You'll sit on social media and follow as many people locally as humanly possible, and follow the hashtags and figure out who's close to you and follow them and offer them benefit and go be a patron at their businesses. Yes. Great.
Do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Right? We know Ed Stulak built his business on doing that. He has an Instagram following of over 50,000 people. He wrote a friggin' book on Instagram.
Yeah.
All because he just followed that and said, I'm not a cold caller, but I can do this.
Yeah.
And I want to engage with my community. Yeah. It's brilliant.
When I first started, I bought into the cold call thing. That's what I did to sell houses.
And it worked for you.
It worked, right? But look, I'll give you a perfect example. With no regrets, but I'll give you like my last 5 years of my career. I probably did, my first year, I think I did like 18 deals or something like that. Probably gross, like close to $90,000. So I did okay. But it was 90% cold calling efforts. Okay. Now, if I had had a different mindset, and if the mindset had been, I don't need to make $90,000. I'm in this for the long run. I want to invest in my brand and my name and relationships. I probably would have made 20,000 first year, 25,000 the third year. But right now, I probably would have had all the business I need without any, just it's
Automatic.
my marketing, my brand
100%.
is working, right? And the cold calling taught me so much on how to run my business, how to talk to people, how to come up with clever stuff on the fly, how to challenge people, their interrupt patterns, all that beautiful stuff that I can apply on everything now. But again, now we're in this stage, and that example I'm giving you, that agent who has a talent. She's doing something different. She's like, any coffee shop I go to, anywhere I go to, I always make 2-3 connections. I always have 2-3 conversations. I don't want to go in the office and spend 5 hours. And this company they're telling her, you have to be in the office 2-3 hours. You got to call these 100 people on this list. And I literally asked them, like, is that list made for you only or other? No, she goes, everybody has the same list. You know how freaking insane that is?
That's ridiculous.
It's like you feel like you're working. You're in this like, but it doesn't. You're not doing much.
Yes.
And again, to kind of bring it back, I know we're talking about our company, and usually we really don't, but I really think that is what's working for us right now, and people are seeing it. It's just an embrace of who you are and how to just kind of 2.0 your version.
Exactly.
Not like, hey, drop what you know, this is how we do it here type thing.
I believe truly in taking what an agent's good at and putting it on steroids. And
100%.
that's and you have to have a model and a leadership that allows for that. So I'm with you 1,000% in total alignment. And I think that's true head to toe in this organization, is that, hey, what are you good at? Let's put it on steroids. Let's help you. Let's be collaborative. Who else is doing it on a high level that you can learn from? Like, that culture and that environment, and it spills over. It's in some coaching programs. It's in brokerage. It's in whatever. It's just in good people, right? Good vibe. And when you get that, and you get that feeling of like, oh, I'm in a tribe of people that now do what I do and understand how I work and feel what I feel and vibe how I vibe, that's magical. Yeah. And I think that's what we found. You, Brendan, and I have found that, right? Like, that's exactly where we're at. I have a total topic switch if you want to go.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. There was a speaker at the Tom Ferry conference last week that I loved. Okay. Now, she was introduced as a persuasive argument coach. So instantly, you and I are like, oh, yes, like doing right in, right? Like, yes, I want that. Right. So she is not just sales, but just how to present a persuasive argument and the science behind it. And I was like, I was so ready for this conversation. I just couldn't wait for her. She was one of the keynotes. So she comes out. Now, I don't know about you. I literally was like, oh, I'm expecting like Sharon to come out, right? Someone that's just like, blah, 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 like really just like packaging it and then selling it, right? And just like, oh, I eat this up, right? So I was waiting for that. And this woman comes out, dressed very nice, very classy, plain black dress, nice, pearls, like just very classy looking, well put together, comes out and just starts speaking just like this, very slowly and eloquently. And I'm thinking to myself, how is this a persuasive speaker, right? Within 10 minutes, I was like, oh my God, yes. She broke down scientifically persuasive conversation and argument, and I was just eating up every ounce of it.
I love it. What was her name? Do you remember her name?
Terry Sojin.
Terry
Sjodin.
Sjodin.
She's got a book. We can promo the book.
Yeah.
But she just took a scientific nerd approach to persuasive conversation.
Wow.
And she's very wildly successful. She's been on Today's Show multiple times, like works with some high level people. Tom Ferry hired her as his personal coach.
Wow.
That is how she got into this. And she's like, I'm not a speech coach. I don't go out and help people with their speeches in front of crowds. What I help them do is craft their persuasive speak and their conversation so that they are able to show people and help people visualize what the outcomes can be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I love this.
Wow.
I'm
going to read her book.
I want to share with you and we can put up maybe the slides when we do the podcast. I'll share. Remind me to share the slides with you, Mason. But I'm gonna go through one of the patterns that she talks about, and I'll explain it because I'm like in love with this notion. So she said, what did she say? Where is it? Dum-de-dum. Okay, here it is. Oh, you're gonna love this. So, President Monroe actually created this. He calls the Monroe's motivated sequence.
Wow.
Okay. Now, if we know President Monroe, he had to sell a lot of stuff to the American people, right? So he came up with this sequence and this science of persuasive conversation, and this is what she bases her teachings on. I can tell you're getting excited already.
I can't wait. I'm like,
Albert's all bought in.
he's been building up.
He's looking at me with like these longing eyes,
I'm
right?
like, it's been 5 minutes.
Right.
Hit me with it.
Okay, persuasive presentations have 5 key components to them. The first component is attention. You need to grab attention, right? Now, this is super cool. My son happened to be working on his midterm at the same exact time as this presentation was happening, and he's working on persuasive essays, right? And so his teacher is teaching them in the opening paragraph. The first thing you have to start with is a hook, which I love because in sales you have to start with a hook.
Yeah.
And she said the best way to get a hook started is either number one, you give an eye-popping statistic, right? So we could say like, did you know that over 900,000 realtors in 2024 didn't sell a single listing?
Fuck. That's good.
Right?
See, I knew that I still was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Right. So you're tuned in, right? So that's the first thing. The second way of doing it would be by asking a question, a very thought-provoking question, right? So you could say, imagine being one of the 900,000 realtors who didn't sell a house last year. What would you do if you were in that situation? Mm-hmm. Would you give up or would you move forward, right?
Oh, you feel that.
Yeah, you feel it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like that persuasive question. Or the third way is a visualization. Now, I love the visualization in this particular instance, and I'll tell you why, right? And I would say something to the effect, if I was talking to a realtor, I would say, picture a situation where you're unsure if you can even afford the groceries that are going onto the grocery belt this month because you haven't had a closing in 4 months. And you're there. But guess what? 99% of realtors have been there. Right.
Exactly.
And it just brings you to that moment of pain.
Yes.
Right. But guess what? You're going to tune into what I have to say after that. Right. Right. Has there ever been a time, you can do the Phil Jones, has there ever been a time where you haven't had a closing for more than 3 months and you were ashamed you couldn't go out to dinner, you had to cancel dinner plans, right? Or there was a situation you had to tell your wife, hey, maybe next Christmas we'll do something bigger, right? Like,
that just motivated me right now. Wow.
Like those visualizations are so important. Now, let's picture doing this in a presentation, maybe to a seller, right?
Yeah.
You can do a visualization to a seller and you can say, hey, Albert, thank you so much for having me over here today. The first thing I want to do is obviously I want to understand and make sure that we have your goals in mind in this whole process. So let's imagine this. 90 days from now, you're pouring yourself a cup of coffee in your new home in Florida where you wanted to be. And you're pouring yourself that cup of coffee and you're saying to yourself, wow, I can't believe that just happened. 90 days just went by. There was some, rough patches here and there, but Justin said they would sell my house for the most amount of money. He said he would do it in the timeline I wanted. And he said he would save me as many headaches as humanly possible. And here I am 90 days later, pouring this cup of coffee in my new house, staring at the beach. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I just brought you to that place, right? So now that visualization is there.
So now you're working from that mindset.
Yes. Yeah. So now I'm working backwards from that mindset. Exactly, right? So I've got your attention. And I've got you into that visualized place. And honestly, you could go for a soft close right there. And I could say, now, Albert, if I go through this presentation of things that I'm going to do specifically to obtain that goal for you, and I show you that I have the shortest point from A to B for you to get to that exact place, can we work together?
Yes. I like, yeah.
It's an illogical answer to
It's
say no.
almost like my personality is almost like I don't need to see the presentation at all.
100%.
Right.
And I guarantee there will be people that will be like, who cares? Let's sign up. Like,
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
Right. That is a sale in 30 seconds.
That's powerful, dude.
Right.
That's powerful.
And that's just component number one.
Wow. Did you send me that?
Yeah. I will.
All right. I'm starting the book tonight.
So that's component number one. Okay. Component number two of this 5-step program or 5-step method, you have to demonstrate the need. What's the need for what you service or product you provide? Right? So we have to demonstrate that there is a need for what we do. Right? So in this particular case, in a service-oriented position, it's really finding the why, right? Like why do you need what I have to give? So I could say something like, Albert, you told me that it's really important to you that we net the most amount of money. That's a big, you need this for your family and for your well-being for the future. So what I want to show you here is specifically how we're going to obtain the most amount of money for you and why everything I do is critically important so that we obtain that goal, right? Okay, so now I've told you I have what I need to do to accomplish your goal. So I've demonstrated to you the need for what I can do for you, right? If I was talking to an agent as a broker and I could say, hey, you mentioned to me that, you're really searching for a better culture. There's something missing for you in your current environment where you think you could do more if you tapped into a better culture, right? And what I'd like to do is address that specifically and show you a little bit behind the curtain of what our culture looks like to see if that could be what you need to tune into to raise your level, right? That you want to accomplish. I've demonstrated the need for what I have to them, right? And it's essentially just tapping into their why.
Yeah.
All right. So that's step two. Step three is called satisfaction, demonstrating to them to the point where they're satisfied in understanding that you have the answer. Right? So when I show them behind the curtain and they're like, wow, you really are, you had 57 people at this social event and everyone was great. And then I've gotten to the point of satisfaction. I've proof that what I have works. If I'm talking to a seller, it's the same thing. Hey, Mr. Seller, can you see now how my strategic process to get you the most amount of money in the quickest time with the fewest problems is the right answer for you? Can you see how I have the shortest point from A to B?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's where your first yes comes in.
Yeah.
Satisfaction. I am satisfied with what you are offering, right?
Yep.
Now, step 4, and this is why I love starting with the visualization, because step 4 is visualization. But since I started with visualization, I just have to come back to it now.
Yeah.
So after we go through that presentation and I've demonstrated the need and I've demonstrated the satisfaction and you've agreed and been satisfied with what I offer, I come back to, so Albert, now that I've shown you I have the shortest point from A to B to get you to pour that cup of coffee 90 days from now in your new home, staring at the beach and saying to yourself, damn, Justin really did the job. Can I have the business? Right? And
Actually, I'll just give you my house. How's that? We're good. We're good. I don't need it.
So step 5, the last step, is action. It is that demonstration. Now, I've just led you to action, right? And in that point, it's let's get started. Let's sign the agreement. Let me show you exactly what we need to do to move this forward, whatever. But it's getting action. And it's not failing to close, right? And I even hate to say it that way because this is not almost about like closing.
Yeah. If you do the 1 through 4,
right,
the 5 is just a natural process.
It's a failure to ask for the business, and so many agents fall off on that and fail to ask for the business.
No.
But that 5-step method,
that's beautiful.
Scientifically, you can deliver.
That's beautiful.
What I'm really working on in my own world is crafting my conversations and presentations around that, and then being able to help agents understand that method so that they can improve their skills, right? We know there's so many order takers in this business, not people that can actually deliver a persuasive conversation. And it's a shame because this isn't about selling. This is about showing people what's possible.
Yeah.
And if we show people what's possible, I guarantee you're going to sell more. But it's not about, people don't want to embrace salesmanship. It's not about being a scumbag salesperson. It's about helping people obtain what's possible. Mm-hmm. And that's what this does.
That's amazing.
I have a couple other slides I'll go over with you from this. And we can put these up too. I know I'm rambling, but
no, it's fine. This is good stuff.
Great. So another thing, this was great too. And this is just logical. We talk a lot about personality styles and different communication styles, right? You've got your drivers, right? You've got your empaths, like people that speak more from feeling, all that stuff.
Analyticals.
She put it into three, not just she took from Aristotle, the three, she says, the rhetorical triangle and persuasive appeals of human beings. Okay. Now, it's very simple, and this came from Aristotle, right? You got three levels of thinking when it comes to this. You're either in pathos, which is emotional effect of the speaker's words, right? So you're dealing in feelings. Wow, that really made me feel a certain way. I'm not feeling this way, right? When you're talking about feelings, and if you start with I feel, you're in pathos. So if someone is trying to talk to you in a persuasive way, and you're reacting on feelings, you're in pathos at that moment, right? So you have to understand that when you're being pitched something or when you're trying to have a persuasive conversation for someone, am I dealing just in pathos or am I dealing in the other components, being ethos, which is more about credibility and ethical thinking and that level, right? Is this person credible? Do they have enough testimonies behind them about proof of concept of what they've done, right? Are they acting in ethical standards or are they unethical, right? There's people that will just only align with ethical people that have that credibility and so on and so forth. So there's ethos. And then there's Logos. Logos is thinking in arrangement, evidence, and logic, right? That's more your analytical type. I want the data. I want to see the proven how this works. I want it all, put it in a spreadsheet for me, right? Like really show me how it works. Show me the data. That's your engineer, your accountant, someone that's really thinking in that level. So if your presentation isn't hitting on all three, you're going to miss.
Yeah.
Or unless you're a mastery level of this and you've identified the person you're talking to. I was
going to say that.
Yeah. If I'm talking to someone that I know is a straight, like absolute logos, like they're just in that analytical thinking.
Then you just go on that.
Right. Because anything you do pathos has no bearing on the outcome. Or vice versa. If I'm talking to someone that just operates in pathos and they're all about feel, then I don't have to talk about statistics and all this because they're going to just glaze over and lose it. But you probably want to have at least some of all three in your presentation.
Yeah.
So you're hitting all angles.
Yeah. I was, as you were saying, I was thinking that probably the ultimate skill would be to figure out how to identify the person on the other side, what they respond to. And I'm sure she probably has a way to ask certain questions to identify that. Absolutely. I mean, one of them was if they respond with I feel, you already kind of know where they are. Or, based on your presentation, if they ask you a question regarding the data, if they're paying more attention to that, then you probably know, okay, they're leaning more toward the rationale. Or if they start throwing like, hey, do you know this guy? Do you know that guy? Exactly. Have you heard of this guy? You know where you stand, right? 100%. So I think that's super powerful. And it's funny because when I do presentations, I've been in those situations before. Like I tend to be more on the analytical side. So I do like the data. And I've been in situations before where if I'm throwing a lot of data on someone, they're just like, oh, Yes. And then there's also certain times where the other person is fully data driven and they just immediately lock in.
Yes.
I'm like, whoa, I really did really well here. But I never realized, I'm always doing the same thing.
Yes.
It's just that there's probably 33.3% of people who are fully going to deliver that. So if you want to increase your chances, you want to master all three.
Absolutely.
That's pretty incredible.
So I do think one of my God-given talents is the ability to profile someone pretty quickly into one of these three categories.
Yeah.
and give them what they need. Now, this also took a lot of work. This took a lot of development for me to understand it. Because in the beginning, I lived in pathos. I'm a feels guy. Like my natural piece is feels. I want to make them feel good. I want them to like me, la, 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 la. But you can't win on rapport alone. And I've seen that happen to a number of good agents where they started getting, they live in the warm referral zone, right? Oh, all the warm referrals, everything is good. And you walk in with good feeling. So you don't have much to prove. You just have to win rapport. But in the situations where you're going on appointments against other agents and they're interviewing multiple people, and they may be data driven, or they may be ethical driven, or they may be credibility driven, those same agents get crushed because they're going in there trying to win on rapport when they need to be winning on credibility and other factors. So now, I think profiling your potential client or prospect or lead is so critically important to do ahead of time. And there's multiple ways. As simple as Googling this person, right? What pops up? Can you see their social media? What's it look like on their social media? What are they doing? Are they a big family person? Are they not a big family person? Are they talking about work all the time? Do they have dogs that they care about all the time? Like, what is it that they're doing on social?
Important to them,
right? Their job. What do they do for a living? Huge key indicator. If you have an accountant or you have someone that's like in that, an engineer, someone that's about building things and ripping them apart and restructuring, you're going to be talking to someone that lives in that logos world, that right? But you also have to understand what's their secondary. They could also be into another category, or their spouse might be into a different category, or their partner, or whatever, right? So you have to know where it is and what you're doing. So it's critically important. But there's other factors that like you wouldn't even believe give me so many clues into how to talk to someone. What kind of car do they drive? Huge indicator.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this then. If somebody drives a $100,000 Range Rover and they have a $1,500 a month car payment, what, like, just curious, right? Like what does that person need? Like, how do you talk to that person?
I think they have to be into, more into the ethos section. They're on ego, right? They need to be proven that this is a credible situation to them and that this is a reliable brand and this is a reliable source. They're not afraid to pay for that.
Yes.
Clearly. Right? But they need to feel, so it's also feel, but they need to be in that zone of being proven that this is the best.
Yeah. It's almost like you need to be like, yo, this is an exclusive type.
Exclusivity, right?
Like not everybody can afford
above
me
the rest. Exactly, right? You go in there as a luxury presence and they are not afraid to pay for the luxury presence, clearly.
Yeah.
So you have to prove to them that this is a situation that's going to make them look better, right? Make them stand above the rest because you have been hired there. So it's huge. Yeah. Now, if I have someone that has a nice, clean Kia at home, all right, or something like that, Hyundai, right? A nice, practical car gets you from point A to point B, not flashy, nothing extra. But I look at it and I notice I said nice and clean too, because they're paying attention to details on it. Yeah. So I'm noticing that. But that is a person, 100% logos. All they care about is practicality, right? They're not about overpaying. They're not about flashiness. They're not about ego. They're not about the feel of it, right? They're not looking for a feeling from their car. They're just looking straight at practicality and understanding that, hey, I just need a car. A car is to get me from point A to point B. That's all a car is. So that person, I'm speaking on the appeal of that logos, like, hey, here's the data. Here's what it means. It's a scientific equation. If we do A plus B, we're going to get C.
Okay, so how do you identify the person who's in the feeling? I feel like that's probably the hardest to do based on appearance, right?
Believe it or not, it's actually one of the easiest.
Really?
You know what?
I think it would be for me because I have no feelings. Yeah. It would be very hard for me. But
you know what's funny?
It's very hard for me to comprehend that. When you talk to someone, yes, but based on appearance, the feelings part seems a little challenging.
So you ready for this?
Yeah.
most feelings people are sloppy.
Yes.
They don't pay
And
attention
that's why I don't
to
get
detail.
along with them.
Yeah. They don't pay attention to details.
Yes, dude, you're so right.
Right? So
Oh
if
my
I go
God.
in the house and the house is a wreck and the kids are running around, there's shit everywhere and the dogs are pissing in the corner and all that type of stuff, and they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm so embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. That is a feels person. Wow. 100%.
Just blew my fucking mind. I'm not even like exaggerating for the pod.
Yes.
You literally just blew my mind because, all right. I was, this is 3 months ago, right? I hired an assistant and I met with her. She was really nice, but she was just a little bit of like a mess, but she was a very nice person. Like just a very, like a
Giving, service oriented.
yes, yeah, like a very just like, oh yeah, thank you, like that thing like that. And I also interviewed somebody who was resume clean folder. She met with me, and I remember telling Serena, I was like, I want to hire the person who's clean, but I'm like almost a little bit intimidated. I feel like I'm not ready for that person. She had like a serious job, and I feel like I don't want to, like I just don't. I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility. And maybe I am, but I just don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to find out. I just don't feel like I deserve her yet.
Yeah.
Like that's what I told her.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going with this person, the feels person.
Yeah.
2 weeks in. This lasted 2 weeks. The second week, right? Second week on Monday, we're doing a little bit of training. And I said, hey, good morning. How's it going? She goes, oh, it's going. My vibes just immediately went
Died.
to the floor because I'm not that kind of person. If I'm showing up to something, I'm here. Don't tell me you're having a bad day. We can tell me that after, right? And I just didn't respond to it. And I realized I should have. I should have said, oh, just take maybe 1 minute and just say, what's going on? Just so that they can vent. And if I had done that, that person would be like my soldier right now.
The buy-in, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
1,000,000%.
But I didn't because I honestly never had this conversation. And I never realized that's all I had to do.
Yes.
A week later, she stopped working for me. It's just she could not handle the intensity. And I didn't get mad at her. I was like, whatever, fine. You know what? I should have trusted my gut. I knew this was not going to work. But looking back, that's the people that I have the most problems with out of the three.
Yeah.
The analytical, kill it. The ego part, yes, I've been there with that. So I relate to that. I get it, right? But the feelings people is very hard for me to be in the same, like it's just, to me, it's like, get your shit together. That's all I think. Who cares, right? But it's not smart and it's not the right thing. So I just totally realized that. And I know I ranted, but I have one more thought.
Sure.
And then we can maybe wrap it up. I'm going to bring this back to us, to sales, to what you do, right? So if you're a realtor, you have two options, and I think both of those are liable in your career, or you should just in sales. You have two options. You can choose to focus on your strength, right? So if you're analytics person, or if you're a feelings person, or if you're a credibility ethics type person, find only people who are in that group, and you will crush life, right? Now it's going to be harder to find those people because you have to learn the skill to identify them, and obviously you have a 30% chance, right? Or the other is master all three, which is obviously much harder to do. But if you master all three, you can literally become a CEO. You can become a president. You can become anything you want because you are learning how to touch more people than just one.
So you know what you just said that was magical, and you didn't even you just gave examples: CEO, president, right? And you give those examples because they're big positions, right? But what they are is leaders.
Correct.
And leaders know how to tap into all three of those, and they get to put people in place to win and motivate and persuade them to do so based on those three pieces, that triangle. And that's how you move people. That's how you persuade people, which is why that's in that conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're able to do that and you will motivate people. You will turn what could be your arch enemy into your biggest ally if you're able to touch that nerve point in their mind that, okay, this person is what I need them to be,
Yeah.
or this person recognizes me for what I need them, what I need to be recognized as. And people will turn into your biggest allies just based on that.
We had this event two weeks ago. Sean's Barry Habib was there, and he gave this example of Ronald Reagan when he was meeting with. This was during World War II. This was during the Cold. I think it was Gorbachev. Yes, during the Cold War, and they met a room full of people, right? And they were sitting at a table face to face like this, and the meeting just started off on the wrong foot. He stood up. I'm getting goosebumps because it's such a the two of the most powerful people in the world. He stood up, walked out of the meeting. Reagan opens the door, walks back and says, "Let's start over. I'm Ronald Reagan. Let's go for a walk." And they decided to go for a walk, and they talked everything out, did all the negotiations at a walk.
Right.
Because he realized immediately, okay, this is like confrontational, right? So you have the emotional intelligence to say, but also the humility to say,
100%.
To take that risk to say, let's just start over. Everybody, you know what I mean? So it's
only a small risk. They're only negotiating the power of the world in that moment.
It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. But that's why, he's one of the greatest presidents to ever live.
Right.
Because you have that charisma. And then you say charisma, but charisma is touching those points.
It's leadership,
people.
right? And you go back and you look at multiple presidents in our history. George Washington, one of the most persuasive people ever to live, right? And I mean, God, he's leading this revolution and having to rally people to death, right? Hey, come die for the future. When you're a leader and you're convincing people to die for the future and give up and sacrifice your own life, your own well-being, your own family to come put together a concept for the future, talk about persuasive arguments, right? But you get people to believe into that. And it is so powerful. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. Let's put that right out. It can, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. Yeah. But the power of persuasion is extremely important if you want to be in a leadership position. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that. And I think the greatest leaders of our time are those that are able to give people what they need when they need it and appeal to all three parts of that triangle and put themselves last. It's not about putting yourself first. I think every leader that puts themselves first fails immediately because instantly you become an enemy in this alignment. But when you put yourself last and you're appealing to people how they need to be appealed to and you're giving them what they need, you're going to be the most persuasive person in the room. There's no doubt about it.